if I told you that believing you're special could be what's holding you back as a writer?
No.
Sounds backwards, I know, but as a writer, this is not a good mindset to have because it can lead to discouragement and even burnout. Don't believe me? Stay tuned to this video because I'm going to show you why the I'm special mindset is not a good one to have as a writer, and how actually believing that you're ordinary could be the key to unlocking your potential for success. So let's break this down. Maybe you grew up thinking you were a great writer. Maybe you had teachers or other adults around you that told you you had all this potential as a storyteller. Maybe your friends really liked the stories you came up with. Or maybe as you got older, you started getting some sort of feedback from someone in your world that made you feel somehow that you had this special, unique gift for writing. So you wrote some stories and you decided you would try getting them traditionally published. Maybe you got rejected. Maybe you posted something and it flopped. Maybe you released a book and it didn't sell very well. The usual things happen that tend to happen to writers. You went out there full of dreams and thinking you were special and you were going to be able to make this thing work, and you got some messages back, either through rejection or poor sales or blog posts that weren't going anywhere. Nobody's paying any attention. And you start thinking, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm not special at all. And worse, maybe if I'm not special, I'll never make it. That's the problem right there. That is the lie. The special mindset is actually what they call a fixed mindset in disguise. It tells you that your talent is innate, that it's just there, that you're just naturally special, you were born that way. And that leads to the thinking that either you have it or you don't. So when you hit a wall or you come up against the challenges that all writers come up against, you think that it means, oh, I must have been wrong. I'm not special, at least not the kind of special that I need to be a successful writer, so I guess this isn't for me. Sound familiar? I know that this happens, and not just from research, but because I've lived it. I've been a full-time professional writer for over 25 years, and I've been writing and publishing books for the last 10, but I was trying to write and publish books for many years before that. During that time, I was facing countless rejections from publishers, silence from readers, and moments where I was just convinced I wasn't cut out for this life. I used to think that I had something special when it came to writing. And this was because I had a couple of stories in school when I was in second grade. My little story took second place in the school-wide contest. And when I was in high school, my creative writing and English teachers would call me out for writing and stories that would stand out in the class. And so I had this little idea in my head, okay, I'm kind of special this way. You can think of it not only as being special, but maybe this is one of your strengths. This is one of the things that you're kind of innately good at, which is probably true because most of us are drawn to do what we're innately good at. So it's natural to kind of connect those two. I'm innately good at writing. I have a little bit of inborn talent for it. So therefore I'm kind of special, unique among people in that I should be able to make this writing career work. But then when I started coming up against all the rejections and all the failures and all the blog posts that weren't getting any comments, and then I finally did get published and I didn't have very many sales on my first book, and I started thinking, this doesn't feel right. Maybe I'm not special. Maybe this isn't really a strength of mine. Maybe I was wrong all along. And that kind of feeling is really yucky. It's really disempowering. You feel like, oh my gosh, I've spent all this time on this and I thought this was the case, and now I feel that it's wrong, and this has left me feeling kind of empty and worthless, and I don't know what my purpose is anymore. And all these negative thoughts start coming up in your mind. At least that's what came up in my mind. What changed it for me was when I read some studies and I read some information on this idea of fixed mindset, which is also the special mindset. And I realized that I was hurting myself actually by somehow believing that I had some gifts in this area or that I was special in this area, because that led to this fixed mindset. So I changed and I started thinking more like I was ordinary. I don't have any special strengths or gifts when it comes to writing. I started thinking, you know what? I'm like anybody else out there. We're all similar when it comes to our potential for writing. I started thinking there's nothing different about me. There's nothing special about me. I am just ordinary. That shift, that's what saved my writing career. and my sanity. And the good news is, it can save yours too if you're facing any of the difficulties that I did. So let's talk about the real scientific research behind this difference between the special mindset, which is also the fixed mindset, and the ordinary mindset, which is also called the growth mindset. So the special mindset is a fixed mindset in disguise. So what is a fixed mindset? That means that you just have a mindset that says either I'm good at this or I'm not. Either I have innate talent for this particular thing, which is writing, or I don't. So when you hit a wall, then you assume that it's all over and you're just not the person you thought you were. It becomes an identity crisis. Psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck has studied this idea of fixed versus growth mindset for decades. In one study, she found that students at university who believed that intelligence was fixed. In other words, they believed they were born with a certain level of intelligence and there was nothing more they could do to change that. The students who believed that, they had a fixed mindset about that, gave up a lot faster and were more likely to avoid challenges than students who had a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is the belief that I can get better, I can learn, I can improve my skills, I can climb up the ladder, so to speak, through my own effort and my own will. The students who believe that, they tried harder and they improved over time and actually became more skilled than the students who may have been more innately intelligent initially, but had a fixed mindset. So the takeaway here is that believing you're special limits your ability to grow because it ties your worth or your identity to your early results. So if writing doesn't go well right away, and when I say right away, I mean within the first 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it depends on how much time you're devoting to it, how much you're putting your work out there. There's so many factors that come into place, but for many of us, it takes many years before we gain any traction as writers. For me, it was over a decade before I got my first traditional publishing contract. So in writing, time tends to go a little longer than maybe in some other occupations. So if writing doesn't go well right away for you, whatever that right away is, it doesn't just feel disappointing. It feels like a verdict. It feels like proof that you never had it to begin with. Proof that you are not special, at least not as a writer and a creator. And that's what's so damaging about this mindset. Let's talk a little bit more about why thinking that you're ordinary is so helpful. Just imagine with me for a moment that you are ordinary. And I'm not saying you are, because I actually believe anyone who pursues writing typically has some sort of innate talent for writing, or at least an appreciation for writing. There's something there that draws them to the craft most of the time. But let's just turn this mindset and decide that you are just ordinary. There's nothing special about you at all when it comes to writing. You weren't born with any magical talent. You were not destined for greatness. Whatever your teacher said or whatever was nice, but you're just ordinary. If you can keep that mindset in the front of your thinking as you're working on succeeding as a writer, here's what happens. If you're ordinary, then your success isn't about fate, and it isn't about your innate identity, what you were born with. It's about how hard you're willing to work. It's about how much effort you're going to put into this, which is something that you have a lot more control over. If you're ordinary, you expect it to be hard. You expect that this is going to be a steep climb to success. You're not thinking that this should just be easy because you're naturally made for it, which is how special people think. If you're ordinary, you think, yeah, I know this is a long hill to climb. I see these authors that I admire, and I know that it's going to take me forever to get even close to that. That mindset helps you to expect failure, helps you to expect rejection, to expect poor sales on that first book, that second book, even the third book, until you figure this out, until you learn, until you improve your skills. You train instead of hoping. You work on improving yourself with every project that you do. This is the growth mindset. And as we've seen in the study I spoke about earlier, it has been proven to fuel long-term success. So imagine what it might be like if you lived this mindset every day. You show up to the page expecting it's going to be hard, so you're not discouraged when it's not easy. You know you're going to mess up, and you plan for that, and you plan for ways that you can get better. If you believe that growth and not any innate gifts or specialness is what will get you there, then you're a writer who's going to win. So let's look at how this might play out in your everyday life. You might be like, okay, this sounds good. I see what you're saying, but how do I apply this in my daily life? Well, here's some examples for you. I'm going to give you the special mindset, what a writer might say, and then the ordinary mindset, what that writer might say. If you're a writer who believes they're special, you have a fixed mindset, you might say to yourself, if this story doesn't get published, I'll take it as a sign that I'm not cut out for this. Oh man, I told myself that all the time when I was younger and trying to succeed as a writer. If this story doesn't succeed, then I must not be cut out for this. Recognize that as a sign of the special or fixed mindset. That's not what we want. Instead, we want to be ordinary writers. We would say, if this story gets rejected, I'll learn something and try again. And you could add, maybe I'll hire a mentor or a coach. I'll get some help. I'll read some books. I'll try to improve the story, or I'll write another one that's going to be even better. You can insert anything in there that reflects the idea of, if this doesn't work, then I'll try something else. I'll get better and try again. You see the difference between, if this doesn't work, I'm going to take it as a sign that I'm no good and I'm not cut out for this, or if this doesn't work, I'll find out a way to make it work. If you have the special mindset, and I hear this from writers all the time, how this relates to this, and see if this sounds familiar to you. If you have a special mindset, you may hear your thoughts say, I'm afraid to share this. Because what if I put it out there and nobody likes it, or it gets criticized, or it's ignored? That could be a sign that I'm not as talented as I thought. Hear that? So you may have said that to yourself, and that is a sign of a fixed or special mindset. That's, again, taking any negative feedback as verdict. Okay, this means I'm not a writer. This is an identity crisis because suddenly I'm not who I was trying to be. That's all a reflection of the special fixed mindset. Okay, so what does an ordinary writer do? The ordinary writer says, well, this is scary, but I know if I don't put this work out there, I won't get the feedback I need to get better. So both writers feel afraid about putting the work out there, but one feels like if things go wrong, it's a verdict about their identity and their future. The other feels like things go wrong, I'll go back and figure out how to make it better. The special writer says, you know, this is hard, and writing should feel easier if I were really meant to do this. Does that sound familiar? What does the ordinary writer say? I knew writing was going to be hard. That's why I'm practicing all the time. I expected this because I'm ordinary, so I'm going to practice and get better. So hopefully these examples will help you to see more clearly the difference between these two mindsets and help you to see why one is so destructive and so difficult and actually so painful compared to the other one. One mindset makes writing about proving something. I'm going to prove I am who I said I was. The other mindset makes writing about becoming something. And that feels so much better. I can become the writer that I want to become if I'm willing to put in the effort. So here's the truth. You don't have to be special. This is good news for most of us. You don't have to be some freak of nature, amazing, creative person to be a successful writer. You just have to be committed. Ordinary writers succeed all the time because they don't rely on innate talent or some magical gene pool to fuel their success. They build momentum every day by trying and failing and trying again and having this growth mindset in their heads. And that mindset is what gets results. So here's your mission of the week. If you choose to accept it, pick something you've been avoiding, maybe something that feels too hard or too discouraging, and do it. And don't try to impress anybody. Don't try to prove that you're special. Just practice like someone who knows that success comes from effort and hard work. If you need more help, be sure to check out the link below to my website, masterwritermindset.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.